Apolonia was born in 1914 in a town named Sosnowiec in what was known as Russia at the time. Her family was never religious. They observed the high holidays for her grandfather's sake and never kept kosher. Her father was more connected to Judaism than her mother, but even her father's connections were very low. She lived under her grandmother's supervision along with the many other grandchildren in her family, but her home was in a town called Radomsko. She lived in a large house that contained an elementary school, a gymnasium, and other apartments, but they lived on the top floor in a suite. She went to kindergarten in the gymnasium in Radomsko, but she never went to elementary school as she studied in the gymnasium during her upbringing. She passed her exams later on and went off to Krakow to study chemistry at Jagiellonian University. At university, Apolonia experienced the bench ghetto, which made her lean more towards the Socialist Party. During her time at the university, there were many anti-Semitic riots, which caused a group of socialists to form a militia and fight back. Apolonia was sentenced to 2 years in prison and was expelled from the university. After she was released, she went to Sosnowiec, then to Warsaw, where she found work in the Alpha confectionery plant and lived as a subtenant with a Jewish family. In her new life, she began to become aware of the Jewish restrictions. The people of Poland tried to prevent the Germans from coming by building trenches, but they didn't help, and eventually the Germans seized all of Poland beginning in 1939. The telephone lines were eventually shut off, and Apolonia could no longer speak to her family. She tried to leave, but she was unable to get out of Warsaw. Apolonia was then put into the Warsaw Ghetto along with all the other Jews in Warsaw. She was able to work but was not receiving any money. The conditions in the ghetto were horrible. There was no electricity, no running water, many diseases, and people ate dead animals to survive. Apollonia's hometown of Radomsko was raided that same year, and her mother died a year later due to angina pectoris. Apolonia was lucky because the people she was living with had a secret basement where they all hid when the Nazis started to transport people. Apolonia decided that they need to get out of the ghetto before the ghetto was completely liquidated. Their job was to make fur coats for the German military in Russia. They had the Ausweis, which was the key to their survival. All of the people with this document were taken to a campsite where they were either let through to work or transported to a camp. Apolonia and her sister were let through and were able to return to her apartment in the ghetto with the other family. There were people who helped from the outside of the ghetto, like giving food and medicine. The burning of the ghetto began in 1943, so she had to place her sister somewhere, so she went with the Skalski family. Apolonia, however, was brave and stayed out on the streets, finding a different place to sleep every night. She met a woman named Irina Solska, who was a well-known theater actress, who let her work for her and stay with her until the end of the Warsaw Uprising. While making deliveries for her new job, she ran into trouble which could have really compromised her true identity of being Jewish. The Warsaw Uprising separated her and Irina, and Apolina had to continue changing her address so she would not get caught. She went to a city named Brzeska, where her sister was hiding, and she was going to take them to Warsaw, but she was not able to go through the bridges. They ended up staying there all the way till the end when they were all liberated. After becoming liberated, Apolonia hitchhiked to Lublin while her sister and her husband stayed in Minsk, where they started their family. Apolonia ran into a friend of hers from the university who she ended up moving in with. They both eventually got married, and she moved to Israel with her family. Apolonia was able to find one of her mother's cousins, Mietek, while she was in Sosnowiec to see if her house was still there. He ended up moving to Israel with his new wife. Apolonia decided to stay in Warsaw because she felt that she couldn't give up her Polish identity. She married a non-Jewish man named Apolonia Starzec, and they got married and had 3 children. They continued to live in Warsaw, and she was a housewife.